Hey guys, so welcome to another episode, which is the last part of our three-part series regarding types of therapy. So in this last part, we're going to discuss concrete examples of what are deep therapies and what are shallow therapies, and we're gonna talk a little bit about each one of them and why it's categorized as, well, by me, as shallow or deep, and I'm gonna tell you all about that. And we're going to end the video with deep diving into acupuncture, because acupuncture can act on multiple levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And we're going to discuss what the differences are and what you can expect. So if you've not had a chance to see the other two parts, I recommend that you do that. They're already uploaded, they're waiting for you there. So this is the culmination, if you will, the actual exemplification of what we discussed in the previous ones. And this is meant as a guide for you to give you some examples of various kinds of therapies. Maybe you find one that resonates with you. But moreover, not so much about the therapies themselves, but actually to give you the whole series is meant to give you a deeper understanding, so that you know what kinds of questions to ask. What do you want to ask about, the therapist, the approach, what to look for. So that's how I want you to be more prepared. So let's deep dive a little bit in some examples. So when it comes to profound therapies, what I would envisage as profound, acupuncture is the most profound that I know. We're gonna talk more about acupuncture in the end, so I'm just gonna skip that for now, because we'll make it kind of a special case. We're gonna deep dive into it. Homeopathy, also, again, it as you will see, each of these, almost each of these, can be practiced at various levels of depth, because a deep therapy enables you to go deep, but also you can have various degrees of shallow, of in-betweens. It's not like 0 or 1. Sometimes, most of the time, you can actually go shallower as well. So homeopathy can be pretty deep, because in homeopathy you can have different profiles that have manifestations both on the physical as well as on the emotional side. So you try to get a picture of the overall profile, and you will be treating that profile, and you can actually cure various emotional problems as well as the physical counterparts that it has. On the other hand, homeopathy can also be a quick fix for some very symptomatic treatments. So many people who do homeopathy, not necessarily being a therapist, but they have homeopathic remedies in their purse or handbag or whatever, because if they fall ill or they have whatever symptoms, like, I don't know, nausea or motion sickness or fever or what have you, you can have the symptomatic remedies of homeopathy, but actually it can actually be a very deep therapy as well, going into the emotional level. Shamanism. Shamanism is one of the most profound therapies that I know. If done right, it can go really, really, really deep. Shamanism is one of the therapies that I learned and practiced and occasionally still do, especially when I don't know where something is coming from, and because I don't fully understand that, I feel that the treatment is blocked because the understanding of what's going on is actually blocked. Ever since I discovered karmic acupuncture, that's been less and less the case. So actually, if I come to think about it, I haven't practiced shamanic healing ever since I discovered karmic acupuncture, because I find the problems in the Bazi chart, in the Chinese astrological chart, and that has always worked. But shamanic healing or shamanism is very, very profound, because the way you go after things is that the shaman actually steps into a kind of a journey, a shamanic journey they're called, and it is presented to him what the actual problem is. These can be very, very deep. These can be incredibly powerful and strong, and I've had patients which have completely solved a problem even through one single session of shamanic healing. Of course, that's not a rule, that's not the usual, right? Just like with any other therapy, there usually is a case of needing months or years of therapy. It's not a one-off and that's it. You're not gonna, be levitating by the end of that. But it has an enormous potential of deep diving and solving traumas from the past, and I really recommend it if you know a shamanic healer that is good and trustworthy. Family constellations. This again is one of my all-time favorites. I think I like it even more than shamanic healing, even though it's kind of comparing apples and pears. I've been a patient in both shamanic healing as well as the family constellations. Well, actually, I've been a patient in homeopathy as well. So the strong point of family constellations is that it brings to the table an understanding of how the disease or suffering or dynamic that is presented in a person's life comes to happen from a whole different level, right? So basically family constellations is based on the fact that some dynamics may not even be at an individual level. They may happen at a level of the family, they may happen at a level of ancestors and belonging to your group of ancestors and your lineage, right? Maternal or paternal lineage that comes with a very strong dynamic that can be overwhelming, and it's not specific to you. You may be suffering from something that you can't understand, you can't identify or associate with what you've been going through, or even if you can, it's very, very strong, right? Because it helps you understand and heal various traumas, because it's easy in family constellations to activate and bring the archetypes into play, the archetype of the mother, the archetype of the father, the archetype of the various lineages, and to also sometimes blockages may come from places you wouldn't possibly be able to imagine because you didn't know that there was such a problem. Like, for example, children that have not been born, children that have been aborted, right? So in these kinds of things, that can have a tremendous emotional echo that will have an impact on a person's life at a subconscious level, which can be incredible, right? So these, for example, can be very, very strong, and you may not even know about them because they may not, they're not yours. They may be belonging to your parents or to a grandmother or someone, or maybe sometimes family secrets. So there are dynamics which do not stem from the individual, and family constellations are an incredibly powerful tool and pretty much the only of its kind that I know that is able to go and approach this problem from such an angle. Well, actually, when I say the only of its kind, I mean there are some, let's say, siblings in this family. So you have psychodrama. It's like a kind of family constellations that is a little bit different with a twist, but pretty much the same thing. So again, very, very strong, very powerful, excellent when it comes to dynamics which stem from outside of yourself as an individual and have more to do with dynamics in the family. Another deep one is craniosacral therapy. Craniosacral therapy is a kind of a gentle massage, but it's not actually a physical massage. It's not about muscles. It's not about realigning vertebrae. It's not osteopathy. It's something very, very subtle, and it works with putting extremely fine and gentle forces on the body, which are probably more akin to the caress of a lover than to any kind of deep massage or anything. So they're extremely subtle, they're extremely soft, and at the same time they are extremely profound. And it's very often encountered that in craniosacral therapy done right, there are emotional releases, the emotions pent up in various parts of the body. And yes, you heard me right, emotions have a kind of a physical address in the physical body, right? When you work on various parts of the body, these emotions can be released and they can come up. And a skilled therapist in craniosacral therapy can actually be extremely good at, evoking those emotions. And then there's a kind of a therapy. When I say a kind of a therapy, it's because it's something between shamanic healing and psychotherapy that happens there, that is kind of built into the craniosacral therapy system at the level of somato-emotional release, right? So that's very, very powerful, and that kind of therapist will help you work through things like these. And again, very nice, very strong, very powerful, definitely recommend it, very deep as well. And then there's, let's say, deep psychotherapy. And why do I say deep psychotherapy? There are different kinds of psychotherapy, different lineages, different styles of psychotherapy. There's the psychotherapy kind that has a direction, an aim to solve a problem. And for example, these could include psychoanalysis, these could include let's say, integrative psychotherapy. They can include gestalt psychotherapy, various forms of psychotherapy which aim to actually address the cause. On the other hand, we have superficial types of therapy, and we'll get to that when the time comes. So another deep form of psychotherapy would be somatotherapy. So that is kind of a psychotherapy linked with working with the body in a certain way. Again, a little bit similar, but on the same basic principle as craniosacral therapy. It's kind of a psychotherapeutic approach linked with body work. The reason why it's powerful is because it recognizes, just like so many other therapies, it recognizes that the physical address, the physical location, if you will, or depository of the emotions is the physical body. So instead of just doing psychotherapy alone, it's much easier to root and direct the psychotherapy in the physical body, exactly where those emotions are stored that need to be healed. So these are a few examples of deep therapy, and I hope that I've been specific enough in the description of what makes them deep, and you have a kind of a starting point to know, what grabs your fancy, what grabs your attention. Maybe you know somebody who practices one of these, and you can go, I know that guy or that girl, so I'm going to ask about those kinds of therapies, and check it out, because it can really be of help for you. Because maybe you want to do one kind of therapy, but that particular kind of therapy is not available for you in the neighborhood where you live. So maybe find another one of these. And then let's talk about the different kinds of superficial approaches. And again, I want to emphasize that superficial does not necessarily mean bad. It just means superficial. It means that it's useful to handle symptoms. There are moments where you don't want to go deep. If you've already gone deep with one therapy, you don't want to do something else which also goes deep. If you're doing, shamanic healing, and there's a lot of stuff going on, you don't want to do in parallel another therapy that is equally deep. You want to have a symptomatic approach which is complementary to that, because the deep approach will probably, bring some stuff to the surface, emotions, physical symptoms and stuff. So if there are physical symptoms, you want to make sure that you can sort them out, you can accelerate their healing, and you want to not do something which will make the overall image unclear, because if you have too deep approaches, you won't know where the results are coming from, and that is very important for the practicing therapist, because if they know what they're doing, they will want to adapt their approach and treatment. So they need to know what's worked and what hasn't. Now, of course, some apply this more than others. In acupuncture, this is very true. In craniosacral therapy, this is not so much true. So if there's a blockage, it's fine. If there's no blockage, we don't care why it's been resolved, but it's been resolved. So it depends. But as a general rule of thumb, you don't want to overlap deep therapies together. You want to have one that is the leader, and that's it. Symptomatic approaches, however, are fine. So this is a clear example when you would choose something like that. What you don't want to do is to have just a symptomatic approach without caring about the cause, where things are coming from, where things went wrong, what's caused everything that you're experiencing right now. So let's talk a little bit about them. We've already talked about some of them. So for example, reflexology, we've discussed. Massage, right? Often enough, I find people that talk about, I have a sore back, and of course I have a sore back because it's been so long since my last massage session. That's the wrong approach. This is dangerous. This is exactly what I meant when I said it's the wrong approach to think that, you're doing this and you're doing it right and you're solving the problem. No. Massage is nice, but your body was not meant to function with massages. Your body was not meant to be tense unless it gets a massage. Your body was made to function as it is. So a massage is occasionally very nice and very welcome, and you should do it for pleasure, not in order to function well and feel bad if you don't get one, right? That's not how it goes. Whatever you need to do, if you need to do it constantly, otherwise all hell breaks loose, you're obviously treating the symptom, not the cause. Because treating the cause means that there's a finality to whatever it is you're treating, and once that has been reached, it's pretty much irreversible, right? So you've done it, you've solved the problem stays away. You won't need the same treatment for the same problem, because that problem is supposed to be cured. So massage is, if someone is, let's say, they have tensions around the shoulders here, this is a very common example, they have shoulder problems and tense neck and maybe some headaches that come from there. If you go to a massage and you feel better and that's only temporary, and you keep going to massages, and this is a kind of a lifestyle practice, that's the wrong approach, because this will actually not help you, because it in acupuncture, for example, here, this kind of picture that I've just described with tense shoulders and headaches and stuff like that is from a gallbladder meridian problem. So, but that's basically a somatization, a physical manifestation of anger and frustration. So then the question becomes, why do these become embodied there? Why are they not expressed as emotions, right? So you then go on to see what exactly is going on. Herbalism. Herbs are very good, they're natural, you can go wrong with them. I mean, any practitioner of herbal therapy will know that some herbs can actually be dangerous, but in the good hands of a experienced practitioner, they can be excellent. However, the downside of herbal therapy is that it's mainly physical, right? So it's good for treating symptoms, it's not so good for treating the cause of symptoms, because most of the time, especially when it comes to chronic problems, the cause is emotional. Herbs don't go that deep usually. Hypnosis. Again, this hypnosis is a little bit of I need to put a star there because it needs a special mention. It depends how it's done, right? It can be done in a deep way, aimed at understanding the cause and solving it. It can be done in a very shallow way, in an attempt to forcefully change something, to forcefully override something, and that's just going to force the system and ignore the fact that there's a bigger problem there. So, for example, if you're doing hypnosis to desensitize yourself because you've had a trauma with, I don't know, a dog that bit you, that's perfectly fine. It's a pretty shallow thing. So a desensitization with hypnosis is fine. However, if you have some deeper emotional traumas which make you do stuff, feel stuff, and the approach in the hypnosis is just erase that and you're not going to feel that anymore, that's just downright wrong, because that's covering things up, and that's the wrong approach. Again, this is much more of a depends on the therapist kind of approach rather than typical of hypnosis. So hypnosis is extremely flexible. It can be done in a very good way, it can be done in a very bad way. I've encountered both. So hypnosis is a bit of in a kind of a flexible range. It can be deep, it can be shallow, depending on how it's practiced. And finally, let's talk about a kind of a shallow psychotherapy. I told you that I would give you an example of that. Cognitive behavioral therapy. It's meant as a coping therapy. This is very, very important, right? Why do I say that? Coping therapy is exactly what it says. It helps you to cope with something. So from the very start, from the very get-go, it's not aimed to solve a problem. It's meant to help you cope with the problem until you do something else which will actually address the root of the problem. So I hope that you're getting a little bit more clarity. So in the end, I was telling you that we'll be talking about acupuncture as an example. And acupuncture can be used on a physical level, mental, emotional, and spiritual. So I'm going to quickly give you an overview of what I mean. So let's say you have a digestive problem, right? And let's say that you eat various foods, and after eating various foods, you get bloated. That's a very clear physical problem. The practitioner will do physical treatment, physical level kind of treatment. They will tonify the spleen energy, the yang of the spleen, the yang of the kidneys, and that will result in a very clear improvement in your digestion. That's a very simple example. Another simple example. You've lifted something heavy, you broke your back, you have a low back pain caused by the fact that you have lifted something heavy and you didn't have back pain before, and then you have back pain. That's a very clear message that, generally you're fine. The only cause of the back pain was the fact that you lifted something heavy. Again, very clear physical problem. Acupuncture is very clear for that. You can expect a pretty quick recovery and efficient treatment, and you should be back on your feet in no time. Physical level, okay? How about emotional level? I'm skipping mental, I'll come back to it and you'll understand why. Emotional level, emotional traumas from childhood, lack of self-esteem, lack of self-worth, lack of the ability to ask for what is rightfully yours, conflict avoidance, frustration, anger, sadness, grief that have been actually kept on the inside and not expressed. I could talk for hours when it comes to the emotional level. So that's how there is a whole big discussion on these kinds of things. But what I want to point out is that acupuncture is extremely good at handling that. Mental. When it comes to mental, we have the range that is purely mental to the range that is mental derived from emotional. What do I mean by that? Mental, which is purely mental. Inability to think easily, right? It's like, it's all kind of a thick bleh, and you can't think straight. Inability to learn, inability to remember, memory problems, flexibility or rigidity in thinking and decision making. All these are pretty much mental as they sound. However, there are also mental issues stemming from emotional ones. Like, for example, you don't think that relationships are good. and that's a mental thing, because there was an emotional trauma which has generated this false belief. So this is a kind of a mental thing derived from an emotion. Again, acupuncture can address it. And finally, the deepest level that I know, at least, is what I call the karmic level. And this is a level of acupuncture that is based on the fact that we could look at the astrology chart, the Chinese astrology chart of a person, and there we can see what their problems are, what their energetic imbalances are. We can see what their emotional and spiritual challenges are. So the upside of it, and what is brought to the table by this level of acupuncture, is that it's much deeper than the emotional part. It's so much incredibly deeper. So I, for example, have practiced, I think, 20 years of emotional acupuncture, and physical is included in that, because you can't practice emotional without physical, or at least not very well. So I practiced physical and emotional and mental, and then I literally discovered karmic acupuncture. I was the one founding it, because I just put various bits of information together, and I discovered that this is the way to practice it. And this completely revolutionized my practice. I was able to go much deeper with these kinds of treatment, and the results are absolutely life-changing. So guys, this brings us to the end of our 3-part series. I hope that by now you have a much deeper understanding, and I hope that by now you feel equipped enough to be able to ask the right questions and look in the right directions to find the best therapy for you. So stay close, subscribe, share, you know what to do, and I'll see you in the next video.